This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's pod. This is the weekend review of June 13th, 2021. We've got some not conspiracy theories. Maybe it is a conspiracy theory, depending on what Discord server you went to. The removal and addition of Noodles, NOODLEGATE, comes to you this week. It's infuriating. I don't know why I have such disdain for this topic. Masks are leaving. Fireworks might be returning. Attractionality for Gorilla Falls, and of course the final installment of the DBC expedition into Disney's Americana. Did you catch that Phil actually had the right title?
I did. I was very impressed. I mean, it probably helped that I typed it out for you. But
it only took 3.5 weeks for me to do it right. Good show all around. But let's head right into it. And we got plenty of news, and it's mostly like a rumor heavy.
Yes.
News segment, Phil.
Yeah, definitely some actual news, some news coming up, but also some rumors, which I think are always fun. But we, of course, have to start with NOODLEGATE. But earlier this week it was announced, and it started with good news, right? Like new additional restaurants were going to be opening at Walt Disney World. One of them being Sebastian's Bistro at the Caribbean Beach Resort, which
we're eating there in about 4 months.
Excellent.
Whatever it is. Breakfast.
And I think that's really interesting to know, because that was actually rumored that it might never reopen. So the fact that it's reopening, I think is great. And then the other one was that Ohana, which is a perennial favorite of many Walt Disney World repeat guests, would also open. Now, the interesting thing was they announced it was going to open, and they had menus prepared. So Ohana was always sort of family style, or in the past they came around with skewers of the meat and shrimp and stuff like that. Sebastian's used to be a sort of a la carte type menu. It's actually going to be served family style as well now. But the big sort of controversy that Jason alluded to earlier was the original menu that came out for the reopening of Ohana was that the noodles were not on the menu. Instead, there was going to be rice as part of a shrimp casserole, and people, and apparently the internet or Disney internet lost its mind. And there's official change.org petition signed for getting the noodles back. And it was trending on Twitter, and it was kind of comical.
Phil, I mean, I've never eaten Ohana. My first reservation was for my last trip, and obviously that got canceled. My wife's vegetarian, so we kind of didn't go there. I mean, skewers of meat and my wife don't really go together. And I understand noodles are delicious. They look like it's like lo mein, it looks to me. People have, talked about fried noodles or like a lo mein-esque type of dish. Why did people care so much about noodles on the menu?
I think they were just something that people really liked. I mean, and Ohana is one of those restaurants that I know a lot of people are like, every trip we go to Ohana, like that is part of our trip, and part of that
deal. I get that.
Is the noodles. And I will have to say, well, I was probably not quite as emotionally invested as some people. When we've gone there, especially with the kids, the noodles was definitely the thing they ate the most of. Like when we go out even locally for hibachi and stuff, like the noodles are the thing they get. So the fact that it wasn't there kind of made me like, well, now I am less inclined to go there. So, I mean, I didn't sign the petition or anything, but I sort of understood people saying like, I wish they were still there, but who knows? I mean, maybe they've changed things in the past and maybe it would be great. But the good news is that I guess about 2 days ago, it was revealed, and I don't know if this was all just a ploy to draw more attention to Disney's TikTok channel or whatever.
No,
but on their TikTok channel, they did announce that the noodles will be coming back to the menu. So when it reopens, there will be noodles.
Now, here, let me just read some titles. I just Googled Ohana Disney. Breaking, Disney buckles to guest demand. WDWNT. Inside the Magic. Disney fan now petitions to bring back Ohana noodle. Like, it's just like everybody stop doing their jobs. And like, we need to get these noodles back. And like, hey guys, like go somewhere else. It's fine. Like, Ohana's still going to be there. You're still going to go. Noodles is not breaking or making this restaurant.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like, restaurants change all the time. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, like, I have my favorite restaurants. If you took like a favorite dish off, I'd be like, that stinks. But because you made a favorite dish, I have confidence that you're going to make a new favorite dish for me.
right. Well,
Anyway.
and that's true. That comes with everything, whether it's changing the fireworks show or whatever. People don't, we've talked about this a million times, but the nostalgia related to Disney trips is that people are like, no, we go all the time with our family and we have the noodles. You can't change it. But who knows? Maybe what would actually come would be better. But.
We're talking about this last week, Disney's Americana, episode 3 and 4, which we'll be hearing today. We talked about nostalgia and patterns and expectations and how that all kind of gets into the psyche of things. It's like, this is just the most ridiculous form of that, but it is they're noodles. Yeah. So let's move on. And if you were one of those people that signed a petition, please write us, because we want to have a conversation. We need to have this conversation. I think it's not going to be an intervention, I swear, and I won't be yelling at you. I'm genuinely curious why you cared that much about noodles. But let's go on.
And just the last thing I'd mentioned was they did about a day or so later release pricing. Breakfast at Ohana is going to be $25 for adults, $14 for children. Dinner, including noodles now, is $55 for adults and $33 for children, which is obviously not inexpensive. But I think what jumped out at me actually was the menu at Sebastian's, which is, I mean, it sounds really good. It starts with the pull-apart rolls and the salad, and you get the Taste of Caribbean with 3 types of meats and sides, and you get a homemade bread pudding and all sorts of stuff. For keep in mind, this is for Disney prices. This seems really reasonable to me, which is
breakfast sounds cheap.
This is dinner at there. It's $29 for adults and $17 for children. I mean,
that's crazy.
All you can eat, like, that seems like a pretty, again, for Disney prices, that seems really affordable. So I know we've mentioned on the show before, my wife is going down with some other moms and the kids. They're looking into eating there, and we're staying at Caribbean Beach when we go down in September, and we're thinking about doing this for our arrival night dinner. So I'm interested in trying it out, and the price point has my wallet kind of excited.
Hey, if she goes down there, I mean, we're thinking about. We're staying there too, a couple weeks after you guys. So I'm psyched. I've heard good things about that restaurant.
Yeah, so we actually haven't eaten there before. It wasn't open last time we were there, but I've heard really good things, especially about the pull-apart rolls and some of the other meats. So I'm hoping it works out. Moving on to a few other news items, actually a couple rumor ones. One, and speaking of restaurants, is that Space 220 apparently finally might be opening in famous Disney words soon.
Maybe.
But there was another posting now for hiring staff to work there. And the company that actually owns it, which is the Patina Restaurant Group, has said that their plan is for it to open this fall. Now, what that actually means, we'll find out in the future.
Disney fall or real fall?
I don't know, but our Epcot day is October 2nd, and if it's open then and we can get an ADR for there, that will really complete our trip.
I've been waiting to go to this restaurant for like 1,000 years at this point.
Well, it was funny because, I mean, I was optimistically hoping it would be open for our last trip, which was in February of 2020. So now I'm optimistically it'll be open for our October 2021 trip, but we'll see.
Well, they kept pushing it back last year, know, for before COVID hit. And I'm like, we were going to go last couple of days of March, first week of April. And we're like, it's definitely going to be open for sure. Nope.
Well, hopefully your next trip.
Yes.
And then the other big rumor that is coming out is that fireworks are going to resume shortly at Walt Disney World. I think Magic Kingdom is the one that is most likely to happen first, although some people are saying Epcot will happen at the same time, probably Epcot forever in that case. It will be happily ever after at the Magic Kingdom. We're getting a lot of these rumors from some insiders over at WDW Magic, specifically Mansion Butler 84, who says that he has people that work sort of the evening event type things and have been told to have nighttime staff ready for July 1st. So whether it actually starts July 1st, July 2nd, whatever it is, but it seems like by early July at the latest, we will be having fireworks back at Walt Disney World.
There's a convergence of rumors coming around this. So we have staffing increases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then Amy Mann from Discord was mentioning about how suddenly all the park reservations for Magic Kingdom are gone for July, like completely full and like not even opening up.
Yeah.
So they're super tight over there. Also on WDW Magic, if you're not on that forum, you're doing yourself a disservice, even though we're trying to distill it for you so you don't have to. It's well worth going over there. They're also talking about like pyro and supply and ordering and all that other stuff. Everything's pointing to probably the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd of July.
Yeah.
And definitely not 4th of July as the first night that it comes back.
And also note from everything we're seeing, they haven't ordered any additional special pyro for what they would normally do for a special 4th of July.
They don't need to.
So if it comes, like even if say Happily Ever After starts on July 1st, if you go on July 4th, it will be Happily Ever After. It won't be a special, 4th of July type firework. But still, at this point, I think people would take, Bob Chapek out there with a couple sparklers. So.
Absolutely. I don't think they need to do anything special. It doesn't make sense to do that if they're coming back because it's now a celebration of fireworks back at the parks.
Exactly.
Now, here's the other thing, talking about fireworks, and I don't think you were talking about this at all, is the rumor was the fireworks at Epcot are not going to be Harmonious. They're going to be Epcot Forever, and then Harmonious debuts 10/1.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the last I've heard. I mean, they've been testing.
Nothing's official, right?
Yeah,
it's all like speculation.
They've been testing Harmonious, but everything we've heard was that it's because they kind of have to get that tested and out of the way before they then bring back Epcot Forever for, say, several months, and then 10/1, which seems to be sort of the day that Disney is saying, okay, we're back to quote-unquote normal or moving forward, is 10/1, which also does start their next fiscal year, so it kind of makes sense. But it does look like they will be bringing back fireworks at Epcot as well, whether it starts the same day as Magic Kingdom, we're not sure. But most likely it will be Epcot Forever, which didn't really have a big run. And I know I'm kind of an Epcot fanboy. I like the show. I think it's worth watching. But I am also very, very much looking forward to Harmonious. But we'll see.
I mean, who isn't waiting for those barges to...
well, after all the expense and everything they're dealing with having those barges, this better be like an amazing show. And I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
I have a few more like actual news items, but the last one that's sort of rumor-ish was that I've seen a lot of people posting. They've noted on the My Disney Experience that they've changed the wording to the wait times. Now it specifically says standby wait. I don't know if this is just some sort of coding thing or not, making much ado about nothing, but we're always all about like, when is FastPass? What's the future of FastPass? Because it's for people who like planning, knowing what's going to happen with FastPass is sort of important. So any little nugget of information we can follow that might indicate something is coming soon, we will report on it. But
I pay no mind to any FastPass rumors until I hear officially from Disney.
Yeah. So actual things that have happened, though, is Disney did announce effective June 15th, masks will be optional in most situations at Walt Disney World for people who have been fully vaccinated. So if you're on rides, if you're indoors, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. They did also have the caveat similar to at Universal where they will not be checking, so there's not going to be any enforcement. So, like I've seen elsewhere posted, people who are fully vaccinated and liars are, able to not wear masks indoors. So I think it's kind of one of those things. If you're going starting on June 15th, you sort of should expect that not a lot of people will be wearing masks, or anybody can not wear a mask because they're not going to be enforcing it.
Bunch of liars out there. Come on, don't lie. You're the happiest place on earth. Be smart and get vaccinated, please.
Please. And a couple other little things. Arcades have reopened at some of the resorts. Not a huge deal, but again, it's going back to normal and just it's building up, I think, for more capacity and that sort of thing. And we also saw a more traditional rope drop happening the last few days at Epcot.
Very traditional.
Very traditional. if anybody's seen some of these videos, it's really, especially with some of the construction walls still up at Epcot. I mean, it really looks like, a bunch of sheepdogs herding sheep into the pen or something like that. But it's where they've let everybody through the gates early and then holding them at, a physical rope. And then it's been about a half hour before the park opens. So for Epcot, about 10:30, they drop the ropes and everyone can go towards their rides and stuff like that. The only reason I think this is significant is, could this be that they're starting that early entry that they've talked before about, which is that only on-site guests will be able to get into the parks 30 minutes early every day at every park. If they're trying to control people versus sort of the gradual letting people in, could this mean that they're getting closer to that? I don't know. But again, any time of sort of structural change, we will be reporting on it.
Yeah, I think it's basically, we've been saying, they're returning to normal. So they're taking kind of the leniency out of things and everything's getting back to standard operating procedure. I don't know if this means anything as far as anything else, but I think they're now just starting to institute, this is how we're going to do things for the next forever. So we better get started on that right now.
Retrain people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one last nugget we saw was WDWNT reported that Beauty and the Beast live on stage, they're now casting for the return of that show, which I think is good that more shows are coming back, especially at Hollywood Studios. And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people were saying was, it seemed like this show might be one that doesn't return. It's a little stale. It's a little, like I said, a little, well, I was saying it certainly could use some updating, some modernizing. I mean, it's still a fun show. Kids enjoy it and stuff like that. And something's better than nothing, but I thought they might have put something else there. But at least they're bringing back something at Hollywood Studios. Which
if they're casting for it, right? So you have to do all the do all the practices, the training and new costumes and the new fitting. You'd figure if they were going to ever do something different, now would be the time,
right? And maybe it's not something huge, but they kind of modernize things. They've obviously been doing more of these shows even on the cruise lines and stuff like that have a bit more sort of updated feel to them. So maybe they'll not totally redo it, but update it a little bit.
I don't think they're going to update it. I think they're just going cheap and they're just going to do the same thing. Maybe that's not cheap because it's still got to hire people to do it.
Right.
But this will be good for the park. The park needs people eaters. So
yep. And the last news story I wanted to touch on, and I'm not going to go through all of them in the interest of time, but it was announced for Food and Wine, which will be starting any minute now. At this point, that there are eight new booths coming to Food and Wine. I'm not going to go through all of them, but a few interesting aspects of them. Some of them won't be opening when it first opens, the event starts. Some of them they're saving until October 1st, which is pretty late into the event, which is kind of interesting. But again,
got to juice up the 50th.
I was going to say points to the whole October 1st, and this includes some festival favorites like Belgium and Ireland and stuff like that. Won't be starting till October 1st. But I did want to point out some of the new events, such as Brewing, which is going to be at the Epcot Experience, which one thing that's nice is that'll be an indoor place. So it's, especially if you're going in, say, August or September, it's nice to get inside into some air conditioning when you're having your food. That place is going to have things like chicken wings and flatbreads and beers and ciders. And then the other one that is getting a lot of interesting comments is that at the American Adventure, they're going to have something called the Rotunda Bistro. And that means it's going to be inside the American Adventure building in the Rotunda, which is where a lot of times you've heard the singers performing there. But obviously at this event, they're going to be performing outside on the stage and stuff like that. So the space will be open. It'll just be interesting to kind of see how it goes with serving food in there. It's almost got a little bit of a solemn feel to that space.
It's a lot of open space in there, though, too.
Yeah,
so they could set a lot of stuff up if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it'll be done, kind of in a tasteful way, but we'll have to see.
Anything that makes, I get the somber feel to it type of thing. I think they need to not make it look like a museum. That's like anything that you'd see in the Mid-Atlantic all the way in through the Northeast, where it's like every town has got like the revolutionary kind of museum or county at least, and that's kind of how it feels when you go through there. So it'd be nice to kind of liven that place up a little bit, I think, and celebrate America rather than just say, here's some old muskets and stuff.
And a whole bunch of old flags and stuff. And at the very least, it hopefully will draw more people in and maybe, get something to drink, something to eat, and check out the exhibits in the air conditioning. And that sort
they're good exhibits too.
Yeah, and while you're there, go and see the American Adventure Show, which is probably one of the most underappreciated shows, I think, with the just the level of animatronics and stuff in it. So, quick
think
plug for that.
I think a part of Disney's Americana DBC Expedition, you should have sang that song.
Oh.
we didn't do that, but I
Golden
think we should have done that. Yes, you recite it, but you don't sing it.
All right. Well, that'll be when we start a Patreon that you guys can pay.
There you go. Perfect.
And that'll do it for the news. A reminder of our social media accounts: Twitter @PodDBC, Instagram, the DBC Podcast, Facebook, DBC Pod, and of course our Discord server.
Very important to get on the Discord server because we're going to talk about Attractionality in just a second. If this was a visual medium and you were just listening to us, I just linked an image in Discord in our private channel. I designed T-shirts today, and I think I did a really good job. I just wanted to get myself a pat in the back and record it so all of you can see me or listen to me pat myself.
I'm looking at it now. It is quite well done. It's very clear what it is, and it's got some Star Wars references. It's got all the names and everything, so it's very clearly for your family and for Star Wars.
Yes.
And I like it.
So everybody's not confused what we're talking about right here, because this is kind of silly that I'm doing this. It's this is like one of our, we're doing all family T-shirts, but we have 2 Hollywood Studio Days. My dad's going to Disney for the first time in 20 plus years, and his first number one thing is he wants to see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So I did one of those, the shape of the Millennium Falcon, but instead of it being a shape, it's just text kind of formed into the shape of the Millennium Falcon. So it's got all of our names, our family name, and that type of thing. So it looks really good. And my wife's first comment was, "Why is it all psychedelic?" Because the words are all kind of
some of them to fit the shape are a little
wavy.
Yeah, a little wavy, but
I was practicing. I was learning my Photoshop skills. In any case, maybe Phil. Actually, no. I was going to say you can't share that because it's got all my kids' names on it. I don't want that on the internet.
You'll just have to picture it in your mind.
Yes.
Just picture the most amazing image.
Thank you. Yes, of course. This week's Attractionality is Gorilla Falls in Animal Kingdom. I don't know why Adam, aka Cassius Stone, keeps picking some of the most random things to do, but this is a good one. I dug it. If you don't know what Gorilla Falls is, I copied and pasted. Maybe we should start doing this. This is something that some other podcasts do that I kind of like yell at them for actually doing it, but I'm actually going to read what Disney's thing is. It's encountering exotic animals as you trek through the dense forests and sprawling savannas and embark on a self-guided tour of the Pangani forest and experience amazing creatures in their national habitats up close and personal. It's a trail, basically right where the safari is in Animal Kingdom. You get to see a bunch of animals, and so it's a lot of cool stuff. And it's a really well-themed, basically, tour of a zoo. That's basically all it is. And not all it is. It's very well done. And first question was, how much do you like the concept of this attraction? Average score was a 4.29. Phil, what did you score?
For the concept, I gave it a 5. I think the idea of, like you said, a well-themed trail to go through and see the animals. I mean, obviously there's rides and stuff like that at Animal Kingdom, but it's built around animals, right? So the idea of being able to see these animals, and I think the way Disney does their enclosures and stuff that you don't see chain link fences and stuff like that is brilliant. So I think the concept and how they set it up for this park is pretty much about as good as you could do.
I gave it a 4. That was the bulk of the votes. 2 people gave it a 3. No one gave it anything below that. I only gave it a 4 because it's like you can't lose doing this at a place called Animal Kingdom. I mean, it's like the concept is kind of obvious. The execution is wonderful, obviously. The concept kind of belongs, right? I don't think I could give it a 5 because it's just like you're not going above and beyond anything. It's like, yes, we need to put animal trails in the park that wants to show animals to its guests. So that's the only reason why I gave it a 4. Question number 2 is, as always, how well do you think Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail delivers? This was actually low scoring, 3.96. Phil, what did you score?
So this one and the next one, because for kind of similar reasons, I gave it a 3 for both of them. Like you said, I think execution is done well, but it could still be better. There could be more to it. There could be more like unique ways of interacting with the animals and experiencing how their environments are. and this is maybe more for question 3, but we also find ourselves doing the other trail in the park, the Maharaja Jungle Trail, more often. I think that one's better because it has the with the bat enclosure and things like that. So it's sort of like, okay, you already have something else in the park that we like better that's similar. It's hard for me to score this one super high. So for questions 2 and 3, I gave it a 3. I think it's still well done. I'm sorry.
Don't jump ahead of me.
Okay, well, I gave question 2 a 3, and I'm not telling you what I did for question 3.
Our listeners want to pace this out, okay? They're driving to work. We need to make this last until they get to their cubicle. So yes, question 2, I gave it a 4 as well. I think it delivers. It basically kind of blends with question number 1. If you gave this question to my wife, questions 1 and 2, she would give this a 1, only because she didn't know they exist. Last time we went to Animal Kingdom, she's like, "There's no trails." I'm like, "Yeah, we went to them the last trip before that," and she's like, "We did." She doesn't remember because she's dealing with children constantly. But
she's definitely not the only one I've heard that from. I mean, there's a lot of people where you're like,
it's kind of hidden.
We went to Animal Kingdom where we did the 4 rides and then we left. There was nothing else there. And I don't know if it's just because you don't, back in the day, you don't have to book a fast pass for it. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's all these walking trails, like the 2 kind of official trails, but there's stuff on the island in the middle. And like, I don't know.
You really need to explore to find them. To be honest,
exactly. Yeah.
That's why I probably could, if I thought about this a little bit more, I probably would have given it a 3. It delivers the experience once you're on it. Delivers. That's why I gave it a 4. But if you don't know it's there, you can easily walk past this because it's just a sign and it's a lot of vegetation and it's just basically a lot of strollers by the entrance, and that's it, right? I mean, they do a good job making it blend in with the rest of the park, which is a good thing. But otherwise, there's no real build up to it, if I'm remembering correctly. And
it's at the like sort of the exit for when you finish the safari. And I think a lot of people are like, all right, we did the safari. That's the big thing. Let's get our stroll above. I think they even sometimes there's cast members that they're mentioning it like, hey, check out the trail and stuff like that. But it's kind of like
it's easy to miss.
Yeah, exactly.
So question number 3 is, how much do you personally enjoy the Cruella Falls exploration? I gave this a 3. And what did you give this one, Phil?
I also gave it a 3.
Yeah,
I know people are in suspense about that, but for similar things we're talking about, I think it's well done. But I do think they could do something to elevate it, to make it a little bit more special than just what you can find at a lot of higher end zoos just around the country. And like I said, I find we like the Maharaja one better. So it's like, okay, if we're going to do one trail, it's going to be the other one. So I have to ding this one a little bit.
The reason why I gave it a 3 is, a zoo's a zoo, right? There's a lot of places in this country where you don't have quote unquote easy access to a really good like national zoo or state zoo. So I've seen really good zoos where, they do a really good job. And not to say that Disney doesn't do a good job, but compared to a place that's just a zoo, it's not as good. So, I enjoy it, but if there's some years that I don't go on it, I'm not going to be disappointed.
Right.
So basically that's my tipping point, right? For a lot of attractionality, when I get to question number 3 is, if I don't do it in my annual or every other year trip, depending on how we're doing it, am I going to be disappointed? And if I don't do this, I'm not going to be disappointed. That's so the ceiling's at a 3 for me on this one. Question number 4, how well do you think Cruella Falls Exploration Trail fits into the land, into the African area? I think everybody gave this a 5. Basically, one person gave it a 4. Are you the only person?
No, I gave it a 5. I think it's kind of hard not to fit. It's Animal Kingdom. You see animals, and the only thing I think I've mentioned on Discord, but I mentioned again, like just how well I think Disney does disguising the enclosure areas. We've been to other zoos, including like the San Diego Zoo. We went to the safari park there, which is kind of has a similar feel to Animal Kingdom, but even there, a lot of places you could see chain link fences and stuff like that. And like, you never see that in Animal Kingdom. So I give them a lot of credit for that. So I think it fits really well into the Africa section and into Animal Kingdom. So I give it a 5. Yeah.
Nope, not. I feel the same way. I'm not even going to expand upon that. So the follow-up question, which is what we've been doing the last couple episodes, is I kind of threw this question out here. I don't even know if you saw this, Phil. I kind of snuck it into our notes. You just kind of did this a little bit compared to a normal zoo. Do you do this every time you go to Animal Kingdom? And I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this a little bit easier. Just either the trails.
Yep. So I can't think of any time we've gone to Animal Kingdom where we didn't do at least one of them. Like I said, I think more often than not we did the Maharaja one, but we've definitely done at least one of them. We usually have a little time on the island too, the Oasis, like seeing the birds and things like that. So we definitely make the trails part of our trip to Animal Kingdom, but we don't necessarily do every single one of them every trip.
I personally, obviously I have not done this every single trip because we didn't do this our last trip in 2019. I kind of wanted to, and my wife was having none of it. We were there in August. It's one of the hottest. It is the hottest park. It rained, and we kind of bugged out like pretty quickly. Late afternoon. So if we had more time, or was more of a better weather, we probably would have done this. So I wouldn't do this every other trip unless we had time and we wanted to do it and everything was all good. It's just not as good as like a normal zoo. Like when my local zoo up when I was in New Jersey was Turtleback Zoo in Livingston, New Jersey. It's a nice little tiny zoo and nowhere near the Disney level. But there's other zoos that I've been to, like namely let's say the Bronx Zoo, which is very good in New York City.
Yep.
I could kind of compare it to that, and it's kind of silly me comparing Animal Kingdom to the Bronx Zoo because Bronx Zoo does not have a safari, but I'm talking about like the walking parts of it. And bigger zoos have better walking exhibits, let's say. So that's the only reason why I think a bigger zoo, I'm kind of spoiled, right? So, if I lived in, let's say, I don't know, Iowa or, Minnesota or name anywhere that doesn't have like, a nationally,
but just not near like an urban center. I mean, it feels like they're kind of, even if you're in maybe a less populous state, usually their urban centers will still have something, right? And sometimes often quite good. Like for example, the Columbus, Ohio Zoo is amazing, but like other areas, if you're a couple hours away from an urban center, you're probably not getting to the zoo very often. So this is probably pretty cool.
I mean, if you've never been to like a major zoo in your state or whatever, Animal Kingdom is phenomenal for that respect. So I've been to a few, so it doesn't compare favorably, but I'm not saying the other one is bad or worse type of thing. So it's kind of a weird. I don't know how to word it properly, but it makes it so if I miss the trails, I'm not an unhappy person. Much as like if I go to Magic Kingdom and I don't get to see Happily Ever After, I'm extremely disappointed, and that trip was a failure at this point.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think seeing something. If we went to Animal Kingdom and didn't like do any walking trail or see any animals kind of just like taking it easy, we'd be upset, but it's not like we have to do the Gorilla Falls Trail or a trip is ruined or something.
Well, I mean, we always do the safari no matter what anyway. So we get our fill of animals, at least a taste, whatever you want to call it. So it's not like we go in there and see zero animals. Okay, so we're going to go to our topic for the week. And Phil, I'm digging this new format for the show, by the way. I love doing the news, doing Attractionality, and hitting the topic. And you guys out there, I think, are liking it too. So we appreciate that. Take some time, go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, leave some feedback, and we'll take a read on the show if you do. And drop us some feedback on social media.
Yeah, and actually definitely interact with us. I think in the past time we had the Disney Comeback Index and about the Run Disney. Well, that was pointed out by somebody, Susie, on our Instagram account. She asked about Run Disney, and we added it in. So, like, we definitely listened to any of the comments, and we'll take them into account and update our show and things like that. So, don't hesitate to reach out and make comments and stuff like that. We read them, and we love reading them.
Absolutely. No, we love engaging with the audience. So this week's topic is your favorite Disney World restaurant. I want to say Walt Disney World Resort. I don't know why Disney Food Blog didn't put Walt in there. In any case, what is your favorite Disney World restaurant that is overrated? Apparently, they had a poll of 13,000 Disney fans weigh in, which is a lot for one of these things, and that's extremely scientific. So I'll give them credit for that. So this article was published. This was your baby. You found this one out. They don't have a date on this. I hate when
if you look in the link, it was posted on May 30th, so it's a couple weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. In any case, do you want to go through these restaurants one by one, and then we give our own?
I was thinking I'll go through them quick and just see if you disagree with anything, and then maybe each of us could pick an underrated or overrated restaurant.
Okay, go. You run the show.
All right. So, so as Jason said, they surveyed 13,000 people, and they basically said, here's a couple restaurants. Do you think this is overrated or underrated? And the first one up was Raglan Road at Disney Springs. And this one came up as 66% felt it was underrated and 34% overrated.
I've walked past it. I've never drank or ate here. It looks like a cool spot. It cannot be underrated because it's prominent. Yeah. It looks cool. And it's not a hidden secret.
Yeah. So we've eaten there several times. We enjoy it. They have the live dancers sometimes, which is great. And one of my sort of Disney hot takes is I think their bread pudding is better than the bread pudding at Ohana. So if you like bread pudding,
that is the underrated comment right there. Oh, okay.
And they also have a really good beer bottle list. So if you look at the bottle list for beers, they have quite a good list. So
yeah, see, I don't think it's overrated or underrated. I think it's plenty of people go there. It's always crowded. It's people see coming in and out. I've never heard bad things about it. I've never heard really great things about it, other than the bread pudding. Apparently,
the next one is Coral Reef, which came up as 63% overrated. We've eaten there before. I think the tanks are really cool. I think the menu needs to be improved. So if I had to pick one, I'd say overrated. But I also feel like it's one where it used to be a hot spot to get into, but people have kind of cooled on it, and it's kind of probably properly rated now. It's not it's not too hard to get into anymore.
This is another one I don't have any personal experience with. I've poked my head in there, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's to me, it's kind of probably right where it needs to be.
The next one up is Beaches and Cream, which came up as 68% underrated. And this might be the first one I disagree with. We ate there last time, and I was really excited to because I know many people love it. And I thought it was good. I mean, the burger was good, the ice cream was good and stuff like that. But it was, it's one of those where it can be hard to get a reservation and stuff like that. And it was, okay, it's good, but it's not like one of those where my trip's ruined if I don't get in. And sometimes it feels like people think that. So I would actually say this one's overrated for what it is.
I think the survey did a disservice. They needed a just right option, right? Because what are you going to pick, underrated or overrated? Well, is it overrated? No, it's very popular for their ice cream. People are excited to buy it. But I think it has a pretty good reputation for a cool place to go to get ice cream. Right? Yeah. Or, it is what it is. When I was there in 2015, my sister went in there for the kitchen sink. I mean, I didn't go with her, but she went with her family and my mom, and we kind of hung back. But that's where people go. I mean, It has a good reputation for that. I think it's right. I think it's right where it needs to be. I don't think it's under or overrated.
Next one up is Topolino's Terrace, which came in at underrated 63%. Which I think I agree with this one.
I agree.
Of the two.
Yeah.
I would say it's underrated. I think, people, it is hard to get a breakfast reservation there, especially now. It's one of the few places to see the characters. But even before, it was hard to get it. And I know a lot of people speak very highly. I haven't done it yet. I hope to do it. I have done dinner there, which I really liked, especially the appetizers and desserts. I thought entrees were a little overpriced maybe for what it was, but it's got a great view, really nice outside lounge upstairs. You can see a number of fireworks and stuff like that. So I think it's one, especially for I think breakfast is really popular. Dinner, I think people are sleeping on a little bit.
See, I agree with underrated just because it's new and not as many people know how. First, I've never been there. I was my first trip. I was dying to get a reservation for this place, and you're right. It's super difficult to get a breakfast reservation. I could not do it for my party, and I could almost get a reservation all the time. So that was one of my ongoing projects leading up to this last 30 days towards this trip. The nighttime, the dinners were easy to get, so you can get it. So I think from all the reviews that I've heard from this place and the fact that dinner reservations were easy to get, I think it's underrated.
Yeah,
I agree.
And the last one is Ohana, which we kind of started the podcast off with.
Not the last one. There's two more.
There's
like three more, actually.
Oh, geez. Okay. I got to go faster. All right. So Ohana, which actually came in at 69% underrated, which I was pretty surprised with given how hard it is to get a reservation.
Overrated.
You even after you get there and check in, you usually have to wait an hour to get your table. They're trying to turn over. I understand why people like it, but it's overrated in my mind.
Totally overrated. I don't even have to tell you why.
Yeah. All right. So Be Our Guest came up as 64% overrated. And I think that probably makes sense. I think it's
no way.
You really?
No, this is totally underrated.
All right. Wow. Okay. We disagree on that one.
Well, here's the thing. I have not had the new prefix menu. Mm-hmm. So last time I had dinner here was the normal dinner menu. I thought it was rather good. The lunch, everybody I don't know, hates or dislikes, let's say, the lunches there. I think it's on par with like a Panera. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great ambiance for Panera. It's loud. It's a cafeteria. Yes. You can sit in the side rooms and not get the loudness and whatever. As long as you have a reservation, you're in and out pretty quickly. You do have to wait in line a little bit to get in there. And that's, I think, a lot of people hate. But the food is decent. I mean, I think I had a tuna salad. Not tuna. An ahi tuna, seared tuna salad. Mm-hmm. And it was very tasty. You paid like $14 or $15 for it, or whatever it was. And it's a great place to sit for an hour in the air conditioning, and your kids get to see the whole inside stuff like that. So I think it's great. I think it's totally underrated. I think people hate it for how hard it used to be to get reservations for this place. Mm-hmm. And you want to go overrated. I can't go in there. It's not worth the money. And they get all grumpy. It's the same people that hated Ohana for not having noodles until they came back. Same crowd.
Yeah, I guess I'm more agreeing with that crowd on this one. I mean, we've done all 3 meals there. I like it. I'm not trying to say it's bad. I actually find myself defending it sometimes for the people that really bash it. But why is it overrated though? But I think it's overrated because I don't think it's your vacation's ruined if you don't get there, which some people have the attitude of. I mean, multiple people that have started planning their first trip and asked me for advice. They're like, our one must do is Be Our Guest. Like, oh my God, we have to get in there.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with being under or overrated. I mean, you're already, to rate it under or overrated, you've eaten there already. Right? So people, if you've experienced everything, mm-hmm. people are hyping this up as I need to go there. It's like, do you really need to go there? Or for your first trip there, would you say, yeah, you should go there because it's an awesome experience?
I think it's fine. I think it's a really cool setting. If you can get in, that's great. I think there's other places that are good too. I think the food's solid. I just think I don't think it's such the must do that some people make it out to.
Well, let me put it this way, because I love having an argument with you. I agree. The food is solid. It's not amazing.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than almost any other quick service in Magic Kingdom. And I hate caveating as if you can get in, because you can get in. You might not get the time you want, but you can probably get in. And here's a tip: if you can't get your reservation, but you walk up, you could probably still get in, but you just might have to wait a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But if you've never been to Magic Kingdom or you're going back for the first time in forever, it's excellent to get in there. The only tip I can give you is don't sit in the main dining room for breakfast or lunch because it's loud. It's a cafeteria. It sounds like a high school cafeteria. There's 2 different wings. Go sit in there. It's a lot less quieter. It's a little bit more quaint. And you just wait in line. You order your food, and they bring it to you, and it's great.
All right.
It totally makes it an experience if you get through it.
I think it's an experience. I just think it's not worth the effort it can take to get in there and the cost. But
I can concede that. Sure. Okay. Move on.
Cinderella's Royal Table came up at 78% overrated. And it's funny where
haters.
I'm kind of thinking of this one similar to how you thought about Be Our Guest. I think it's gotten over trashed over time where people are like,
yes,
food is
underrated. I'm with you on this one.
I think it's, it is also hard to get into, but you're eating in the freaking castle. And it's like every time we've gone there, the food's been good. You see princess
These noodle lovers are overrated.
I know, is it expensive? Sure. It's Disney and stuff like that. But to me, between the two, it's worth the effort to try to get in. And if you've never been to Disney, I would do this one over Be Our Guest. I think it's that much
100%.
more special.
Look, boys and girls, listen out there. Okay. Get your cynical Disney dollars mind out of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like Phil said, you're eating in the castle. You go through the castle, you go to the backside, carousel side, you walk in, Cinderella is greeting all of the guests coming into the restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay, you ain't getting that nowhere else in the castle. You go up the nice narrow stairs. It's very nice and quaint. You go into this second level dining room. You've got stained glass windows. Take pictures. You got the view of all of Fantasyland. The princesses are coming out. The boys get swords. The girls get wands. And the food's not that bad. I mean, granted, I think the food's overpriced because you're spending, what, $80 per adult?
For dinner. Yeah, at
roughly?
least for dinner. Yeah.
$76, $79, whatever it is. So that's expensive, but you're paying probably $20 to $25 premium just to be where you are.
Yep.
To me, Cinderella's Royal Table, if you can stomach the cost, is a must-do once-in-your-lifetime type of thing.
Fully agree. And as a tip, if you're worried about the money, we did breakfast there. You get the full experience. It's again, it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than the other meals, and it's also you can get multiple meals. Like I had like one of the other dishes, which was like the stuffed French toast, as the side to my like. They'll
Kidding. I never done breakfast.
Yeah, so I feel like we've overly filled ourselves. I feel like we got our money's worth for breakfast there. So. Just one way to make it a little less crazy expensive, but I 100% agree with you that if there's any way you can swing it, you as a Disney fan, you should do it once at least.
I'm going to hijack this. The next one was Grand Floridian Cafe. I'm going to skip that one. That was underrated by 72%. The next one I want to say is the Jungle Navigation Skipper's Canteen.
Mm-hmm.
Super underrated. My favorite restaurant in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. I agree. I think people get scared by the menu, even though a lot of the
Noodle
dishes there
lovers. Go have your noodles somewhere else. I will make you noodles and butter, okay, little boys and girls, and put some garlic and Parmesan on it. You can sit there in the kids' table and nosh on those while I have some delicious food with some really crazy different soda flavors from around the world at Skipper's Canteen.
And I think half of the dishes are really not that out there. They just have like weird names or descriptions or something. But most of them, it's like a protein with a veggie and a sauce. Like it's really even if you're on the fence about it, give it a try. There's stuff in there that you will definitely like. I've had some of the best servers in there. They have a blast. They have some, kind of shenanigan type things in there.
The place looks awesome.
Yeah. So I think it's good to highlight this one that it's something that some people are like, I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't have an out there appetite. I'm not a foodie or whatever, but give it a try. There's plenty of things that I think everybody can like on the menu.
Vegetarian friendly too.
Mm-hmm.
My wife loves this place. And she's like, my wife is very rarely gung ho about anything at the Disney parks. She loves everything, but she doesn't like dive in completely. Everything. She loves this place.
Good. Oh,
so,
good to know.
Totally go with that. Okay, so we spent a lot of time on that topic. It was a good one though. It was good. So before we get to, we're very late on this episode already. Sorry guys, it's going to go long. But for this week's DBC Recommends, Cruella came out 2 weeks ago.
I think so. 2 weeks? About a week and a half, I think, at this point. Yep.
I saw it this weekend with the family. Okay, I had a couple concerns going into this movie. The trailers made it look really stupid. It was basically, it looked like the Joker, but with Cruella. Because I'm not going to spoil it. I could. However, the movie was excellent. It had great acting, great writing, great story, good tempo, right? Not bored at any point. It wasn't like this was like a crazy person going on a crime spree and let's follow them along type of thing. It was all about fashion. It was all about story and family and persecution and revenge. And it had everything.
Yep.
And I was worried that my kids would be like, it's not really great for kids. Kids loved it. And I was not like muting the TV or anything else like that. So it definitely had a little bit of, adult kind of storylines, but so did Bambi. Right. So I put it on par with that. I totally recommend it. I don't know if you want to spend $30 on it, but once you have available and you're comfortable getting it, I definitely suggest getting it and watching it. It's a really good movie. That being said, we're going to say goodbye for the week. After the break, you're going to see the conclusion of our very first DBC expedition into Disney's Americana. And this is the finale. And next week, we've got a really good one for you, which we'll talk about at the top of the show next week. But with that, guys, enjoy it. And we'll See ya next week, guys.
And look for our Loki reviews. We are continuing those.
Oh, we forgot about Loki reviews. Yes, we got a lot of downloads for that.
Yes,
Very happy with that.
Absolutely.
So, I think we have to drink more beer for Loki.
That might make more sense.
Okay, we've been going too long. Okay, after the break, part 4, Disney's Americana coming next.
Rivers of the Pharaohs. Excursions to the land that time forgot. And so will you. Sign up today for the adventure of someone else's lifetime.
Americana is defined as a collection of things that are characteristic of the American people. Walt Disney himself personified the dreamers, the fierce independent spirit that Americans like to ascribe themselves. We spoke of the man and the studio and the parks that he built and heavily influenced in his later days. Walt Disney left an impression on the people that worked with him and the generations after. One of Walt's last endeavors was the Florida Project that became the vacation kingdom of the world. Disneyland was a regional park with national fame. Walt Disney World became an international destination that propagated Walt's ideals for generations across the globe. It comes to no one's surprise that Walt's influence is everlasting even to this day. Every one of Walt's endeavors further made Disney and the American way synonymous. One of the ways it manifested itself was with Disney's America. Disney's America was a park concept that was inspired by a trip of Disney executives, including Michael Eisner, to Colonial Williamsburg in the late 1980s. This concept was to be a park themed on American history that included different areas from pre-Civil War through post-World War II. Ultimately, the park never came to fruition, but the development of it demonstrates the interconnectedness of the Disney Company and America itself. How Walt's vision for and love of America persisted within the company well after his death. One of the reasons Disney's America was never built was the public's fear of Disneyfication of American history that we discussed last time. Even 30 years ago, people were concerned about this. While a pavilion or a number of attractions in a park are one thing, a large theme park outside Washington, D.C., that would become a huge source of history for the public at large was another.
I think it's important to discuss, the responsibility, I think you can call it, of Disney CEOs to embody America. It's the American company. Everybody's wearing costumes on Halloween of all their different properties. It's at this point in the late 80s, early 90s. Disney's a huge company and a huge influence on American history. It's just about to get bigger with the golden age and further on in the 90s and the early 2000s. And, it starts with Walt's influence that we discussed. And now kind of moving to the future, you've got the Bicentennial Parade that they did. And I think Disney started feeling that they had a responsibility to promote American ideals, American history, and they wanted to kind of capture that. And there was a large pushback against that because of all the things that we discussed last time about this Disneyfication. It's basically, I don't want to call it whitewashing. That might be a little bit too have a negative connotation to it, but it's basically taking all the good parts about history, promoting them, and kind of leaving out some of the confusing, messy parts. And when you're giving a history lesson, you need to have the full perspective, I think, rather than just kind of the warm and fuzzy parts.
Yeah. I think when you look at Disney's history, starting with Walt, but all the way up through, and especially I think with Michael Eisner, they see themselves as storytellers, and they see them as being able to do it really well. And in some cases, take complex things and make it entertaining, make it something that people want to spend time with, that they want to bring their kids to, that their kids are interested in. And so I think that was one reason why Disney's America was an idea that they thought they could execute well. They're saying, look, American history and things like that aren't necessarily being retained as well by kids. They're not learning as much because it can get complicated. It can be a little, not always told well. And so I think they thought if we could do this well, and we're Disney, we do things well, that it could be a really entertaining way for kids especially, but everybody to learn more about American history. They certainly weren't going to ignore things like slavery, but I don't think from the plans they would have handled it probably as sensitively as they should have. So, looking back, it's probably good this didn't get built. But you can kind of see that and you can see it also in Euro Disney and stuff like that, that Disney felt they knew the right way to do things successfully and entertaining. But for certain elements of American history, like you said, it can lead to whitewashing and not telling the full story, but just a part that's more kind of cohesive and entertaining.
Let me just one thing to add is, I think it's always discussed, but Disney has a certain arrogance to them, which has led to some amazing things, and so not amazing things. So maybe in a future expedition we could talk about Disneyland Paris or Euro Disney and some of the failures and how they rescued that project over time. But a story for another day.
The Disney company struggles constantly with the challenge of staying culturally relevant while also maintaining that original vision of living up to the ideals and dreams of the American people. They walk a fine line between relives fond memories of the past and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future, as Walt said in 1955. How many of those fond memories are not realized by different subsets of American citizens? People joke, or for some they aren't joking, about Disney being woke, but it's just a continuation of Walt's vision. Whatever the current day thoughts of Walt himself, anti-Semitic, misogynist, union-busting, anti-communist, etc., his goal was always to be inclusive and tell a story that can be shared by all the children and families of the world. Today, Disney is spending time and money updating the Jungle Cruise to remove culturally insensitive depictions of African natives and has announced a complete redo of Splash Mountain to remove the theming related to the very problematic film Song of the South. They have also added warnings to older movies and shows on their streaming platform Disney Plus, explaining that elements shown are outdated. The challenge is that many people get stuck on reliving fond memories of the past and forget to also savor the challenge and promise of the future. That future is inclusivity. While many of Disney's historical representations in the park are mainly white 20th century America's and Disney's vision of the future will be much more colorful and sensitive to the ramifications of the history it tells in the parks and media.
I mean, it's an interesting theme that's kind of woven through the history of the parks and in Disney media. Disney's excellent at creating nostalgia. We talked about Main Street last time, but there's also a sense of progress that Walt always kept his eyes forward. Whether he had his own tropes and things that he had to worry about, but ultimately he wanted to create an inclusive environment that was progressive and maybe not on a political point that everybody thinks of what when they hear progressive to be, but always changing, always adapting, and kind of being the best. Walt was always in the forefront of technology. He was always in the forefront of media and entertainment, always kind of pushing the boundaries. And I think he would be proud of what Disney's doing right now when it comes to the balance between keeping what was and building new for newer generations.
Yeah, I think when you think about some of the classic attractions that he was involved in, like we've talked about the Carousel of Progress, and while that might be depicting a white family and could be more diverse, it certainly shows the idea of technology leading to a better tomorrow, that it freed up people's time to spend more time together and not just have to do tasks. But there's also rides like It's a Small World, right? I mean, the idea that while people are different and there's different cultures and different things around the world, we're more the same than we are different. And I think that's relevant as well. I mean, obviously, Walt had those views from the lens of somebody that grew up in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s, which is very different than today. What was acceptable then certainly isn't now. And like you said, who knows what Walt would think? The people that knew him the best never knew what he was thinking. But I think that the signs point to him being much more favorable to the changes that are being made now. If anything, he'd probably be mad that they weren't made earlier, right? So we'll see. But I think we always, like we're trying to highlight in here, there's nostalgia, but there's progress, and progress is just as important to Disney as nostalgia. What are the signs of these ramifications, and how Americana and Disney became synonymous over the decades? Prior to the 1970s, the Walt Disney Company's influence was only relegated to movies and TV and the accompanying merchandise for the vast majority of people. That influence was by no means small in any way, but it really wasn't until Walt Disney World became an incredibly popular vacation destination that Disney as a brand solidified its place in Americana for generations to come. Going to Walt Disney World at least once was a rite of passage for many families across the country. Its popularity has only grown in the last 50 years, even for those of us who aren't fanatics that attempt to go once a year, or for some much more often. It seems like there was always one trip that every middle-class family had to take when the kids were little. We won't be as dramatic as to say it's a pilgrimage, though I'm sure there are some that would love to describe it that way, but it is one vacation that most families do at least once. It's so deeply inscribed in our society that every winning Super Bowl quarterback since 1987 exclaims, "I'm going to Disney World." And by now, it's just natural to hear it. It's part of the show, and there's no bigger event of the year than the Super Bowl. What other vacation destination is often brought up during 401k planning as something not to take a loan out for? Which brings up a point to the future of Walt Disney World and the Disney Company as a whole. How affordable is it for Middle America? As Disney owns more popular brands from Star Wars to Marvel to princess movies that bring in billions of dollars, can the average family afford it? There's a cycle that Disney has never broken, and that one generation after another brings their kids to Disney World. This instills a nostalgia loop that feeds into all of Disney's properties, from merchandise to movies to streaming platforms. It's a full-blown ecosystem that reinforces each other.
And it's a good comment, or it's a smart comment to talk about how Disney may be pricing out Middle America, and we're not going to take an economics class right now, and the wealth gap, and minimum wage, and that whole discussion that's ongoing currently and has been for a while. But I do want to talk or comment on the rite of passage comment that you made. There aren't that many commonalities anymore for the American people, so to speak. So if you went back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the nightly news was watched by almost everybody. You only had 2 or 3 channels to select from when you're watching TV, or before that, only so many radio stations. With social media, the internet, and gosh knows how many platforms that you can choose from, there's not one piece of media that's absorbed by a lot of people. To kind of give you an example, when Davy Crockett came out, it was seen by 30 to 40 million Americans. And a hit TV show now is seen by single-digit millions and deemed incredibly successful. So one of those commonalities that are still here is Disney World, because anytime you go to a birthday party for your small kids, I guarantee you the vast majority of those people probably either have taken their kids to Disney World or plan to very soon. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that whole, oh gosh, it's so expensive, or we've been saving up, or just kind of learning about it. It's one of the few commonalities that kind of bridges different cultures or upbringings that a lot of people can find common ground in.
Right. No, that's true. And you even hear some people that maybe their parents weren't able to, that it's almost a sign that they've made it, that they're able to, their parents were able to provide them a better life, because now they're able to take their kids, or even take their parents then, right? It's become such a goal of so many people that if it becomes out of reach now, does that sort of put it in a different class, where it's not for something that everyone can attain, but only for certain people within the country. If Walt Disney World becomes more of a dream vacation than a reality, does that break the cycle? Would that become the first true broken promise of Walt's vision? In a post-pandemic world, Disney itself has lost a lot of power from the end of Bob Iger's tenure, where he accumulated so much intellectual property. It has created more and more avenues of influence into the American zeitgeist. For a platform that is so young, Disney Plus has already shattered records of original programming and streaming audiences, exceeding industry stalwarts like Netflix. How much does Disney focus more on in-home entertainment, leaving Disney World to the well-to-dos? Does this impact their sphere of influence inside American culture? From Walt's decades in the early 20th century to the 21st century and beyond, Disney is staged to steer the American dream of equality, with black superheroes that hold the mantle of Captain America, to tearing down old stereotypes of the Song of the South. How much do things like Disney's Fifth Key influence children and young adults moving into this new world? The Disney Company was born in the 20th century and forged its identity through war and times of plenty. However, the Disney Company is now poised to become a major contributing factor in how we look at each other as citizens across cultural divides. Disney in the 21st century is going to look completely different from that of the 20th, and times are changing quickly. And that has led to a lot of people voicing their concerns and anger. The new Disney look allows cast members to have visible tattoos or different jewelry or wear their hair naturally, and celebrates the LGBTQ community. Basically, it enables cast members to be themselves more fully. Many people are worried that with all this change, they will no longer be able to leave the outside world, well, outside when they enter the gates. They want to continue to be able to leave today outside the berm and exist only in a place of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. But can Disney afford to ignore the changes in American culture? Disney used to reflect what was out in pop culture and society, and continuing to do so means appealing to the broadest set of guests. But as the saying goes, you can't please everyone all the time. And as we have discussed, the history of the Disney Company shows that they didn't only reflect society, but helped shape it too. Can Disney continue to do that in today's world? If so, what is the type of world they want to bring forward? Do people want them to help shape it? Change comes fast this century. How does Disney impact that change with all their influence across all their platforms?
I think this has been an incredible discussion that we have had, and leaves the question to be asked. Where do we move from here? The parks sometimes feel like they've kind of been stuck in the mud with not so many expansions, even though they spent billions of dollars on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and some other parks around the world. But you can kind of see how the future of Disney Plus, the future of Disney in Americana is going to be spearheaded probably through Disney Plus, with its popularity, with its the corporate kind of backing of it from its success over the last year through the pandemic. And Phil, I think it'd be an interesting kind of look back in 30 years to see how, as we discussed, how the parks themselves became such a huge part of Americana and a driving factor in, everyday middle America, where it's like, this is the vacation to go on, that sort of thing, the rite of passage discussion. How much does now Disney shape culture moving forward? Because they have such a huge footprint now.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the idea about leveraging their streaming platform where they can have so much more variety and more diversity and can kind of highlight things. I think the one example we mentioned was around now that there's a Black Captain America featured on a Disney Plus show. Would that have even been possible 70 years ago? And not only did they show it, but they brought up challenging questions in there, asking, can America accept a Black Captain America? And I think that's great that Disney is willing to do that. In some ways, it gets frustrating with some of the negative response they get to some things. I mean, we talked about the fifth key, which is inclusion, which, there's a lot of different elements about that, about trying to make the parks and attractions more welcoming to everybody, but also for their cast members. and it was kind of sad at all the outrage that like, okay, so somebody's going to have a visible tattoo or whatever. Like, how does that make that lessen your experience? And so I think that's going to be a huge thing going forward, where how does Disney not alienate people too much, but almost use that as a way of encouraging them? And maybe when they see that there's people that maybe are expressing themselves differently, but still providing great service, that'll help them. And I don't know, maybe it's a little, going back to the world of fantasy, but I think it's the opportunity where Disney can take some chances. Although sometimes we're seeing they're not going all the way. There's some properties that they were going to put on Disney Plus, but then they said, no, maybe that's a little bit too much, so we'll put it on Hulu. Where is it going to be? When are we going to have an LGBTQ Disney princess or something like that? And, is Disney going to go there? What's it going to take? But they have that sphere of influence where they can really dynamically push things, and hopefully they continue to do so. I mean, I think we've seen things in the last few years that we wouldn't have seen 20 years ago. I'm sure 20 years from now, it'll look completely different too. But as we mentioned, being able to frame what it means to be an American, the positives and the negatives, but progress is one of those key words too. And I really hope that the Disney company continues to focus on that and progress what it means to be an American.
And just to close out our segment, we've taken a look at where the American spirit was embodied by, or Walt Disney embodied the American spirit, and how that kind of propagated throughout his company over the decades, and how the company itself, after Walt's passing, kind of manifested in the Florida Project, which then ultimately had a larger and larger impact in American culture moving forward, as we discussed. And I think the next phase of Disney, I have to imagine, Phil, as we just talked about, is we're going to look towards the future rather than looking back to kind of capture the past. I don't think if they were to make a new Castle Park today in the U.S., it would have a Frontierland and a Tomorrowland and Main Street. I think it would look completely different, and I think it would be more forward-looking and more inclusive in its representation of culture and what Americana is today. Because it's certainly, Americana today is certainly not a bakery on one corner and a confectionery on the other. It's a little bit more complex now these days. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed our journey through history a little bit. And actually, probably used to say, Phil, an expedition through history.
Exactly.
And next time we'll go through some other history and things, but we'll save that for another time. Thank you for listening, everybody.